here we go. Chess for Coffee's here. Chess for Coffee, boss. Let's try to put this show, while I'm jadubing this business here, let's try to put this show up because people on the other channel, there have been some people saying, hey, Bows, when you do these shows, I want to make sure they're there so that I can watch them later, that kind of thing. Now, how do I do this, Bows? Let's make it, yes, like this. There we go, buddy. And I'm just gonna, it's not letting me, dude. Oh, man. I tried so hard. In any case, almost there. Get rid of English and kettle and caca. All right. So, let's get it going. And I thought what I would do is I've started this show before on at the very bottom. I thought I'd start at 1,000 today. And the way this works is this. We just got the dojo score. I look at a cohort, look at the dojo score, and I pick the first person who's done work in the last 7 days, right? So in this case, we got Liam, who has graduated a bunch of times already, and they're cruising. And I love that they're using USCF too. In any case, that's my simple algorithm for choosing which person to look at. And the basic idea of the show, and a little bit the dojo. Well, first of all, the dojo, and then I'll talk about the show. The idea of the dojo training program is you will probably make it, especially at this cohort, 1,000, 1,100, you will probably make it to the next level without finishing everything, right? And the reason for that is you probably haven't reached your plateau. And the idea of the whole dojo is, hey, if you've got a plateau, this is the complete package you need to make it to the next level, okay? So we're particularly concerned with people who are close to maybe finishing it and aren't there. Now, then you ask yourself, well, why the last 7 days? Because consistency is very important. You got to be on this, I wouldn't say every day, but definitely 3 times a week. So if you're not doing it, then it's just not going to happen, right? It's cool that we got somebody with 126 hours, right? But, it's got to be every week. So we're going to check out Liam. We've checked out Liam before on the graduation show, but let's just dive in here a little bit. Now, the USCF graph over the board, it's going to be a little less jumpy, of course, than the online ratings, because you're playing, a tournament now and then analyzing those games. 1066, that's a good year. And also really good rating progression here from Liam. Now, I don't know if I feel bad about this, but let's go spy on him. Click. We'll go a little deeper dive on we could deeper dive on the ones that aren't Phoenix. Okay, so I mostly wanted to see, what kind of tournaments they're doing. And you can see here that Liam has started playing over the board very recently, just got their partial rating. I think it's 21 games or something like that. So, almost done with the partial rating. And one thing actually I'm confused on is, right. So it's normalized to 1066 because the USCF is a little bit inflated over the FIDE. Good. So that makes sense. Yeah. So what we're seeing is someone just beginning, and we should expect, especially with the over-the-board games, and then hopefully some analysis we'll look at today, we should hope for, anyways, some good gains. And already we've seen some good ones here. A couple questions in chat. I haven't done any work in the dojo, but I reached the rating goal to go to the next cohort. There's no point in going to the next cohort then, right? No, go to the next cohort, boss. Go to the next cohort. A lot of people think that going to the next cohort involves doing all the tasks. That's not true. If you can prove yourself at a certain level, then the tasks are there for you at that level. Okay? Yeah. And also, you'll be sparring with people, and it's not correct to be sparring with people that are below you. We have some people, for example, that are like Quad XE over here, who wants to do the material in the next cohort but isn't there yet. And then that's unfair to the people in that cohort, you know. So stay in the cohort that your rating says you should be in. All right, let's take a look at the activity here. And yeah, lots of good work, and looks like a lot of tactics, which is fine. We got some analysis, and I'm really hoping for DM Liam that we've got some analysis of those recent games. Okay, and a lot of endgame too. Looking great. That's really great to focus on the endgame at this point too. Just those basic algorithms in the Silman book. Some mates in 2. Learn chess the right way. Tactics time. Great. Great, great, great. And okay, let's take a look at the games then. A lot of places recommend 50 in a year. Yeah, it's funny how that 50 in a year number, I'm pretty sure how that originated is John Donaldson, a friend of mine, was on the Perpetual Chess podcast and gave Ben a number like that. Yeah. So it's I would say, you know, from my own perspective as an older dude, that you need, let's say, a tournament on average about once every 2 months, you know? So if we imagine 6 times 6, I'm just doing, you know, 6 games in a tournament, and, you know, 6 times a year, that's, you know, it's not 50, but that's pretty good. You have to really go over those games, though, for sure. Nose, thank you for subscribing. Okay. Okay, good. So this is DM Liam, and this is a pretty recent game here with Truck Score. I hope we haven't looked at this already. Let's click it. Beware of h4 when playing the Caro Kann. And this is DM Liam. So, h4, h5, bishop d3. Okay. Now, I think when we talk about the note up top, beware of playing h4, it creates an outpost, that DM is, he means h5, right? Which is fine. h5, and I want to say it's absolutely correct, even though the h5 is the correct move or good move in that position, that it's absolutely correct to have mixed feelings, bad feelings about the move, because, let's say it, there's a French structure happening here. That means that the king side will be white side of the board, and we therefore don't want to make any pawn moves on our weak side, us being black. And so it's a big concession to play h5, even if it is the right move, giving away this square. Okay, bishop g5 is in the aggressive repertoire. The bishop d3 is fine too. Snippo, snappo, and then g6. Oh, you know what's hilarious is I think Truck Score also has this game annotated. I'll tell you what, let's do a different game. I just looked over this recently, the same game. And so let's do a different one. And I also want to do one of his over-the-board games. This is a house game. Okay. I assume that means maybe it's a real game. Caro player, knight f6, fine, f3, strange, right? And I think it would be good to say something about f3. One thing at this level that you're going to find is that people are going to give you time, and they're going to give you concessions, and you need to understand why they are concessions. right? So in this case, f3 is terrible. It's doing 3 wrong things. The biggest is it gives you a tempo to develop. Number 2, it blocks the knight. Number 3, it creates this avenue towards the king. So horrendous move, and we need to say something. We need to say this is horrendous, and this is why. Okay, bishop f5. You have other moves, but that move's got to be okay. Bishop d3, and now you go for the gold. Queen takes d4. Boom. Probably you can do this. I say probably because he could still mess with you a little bit, I think. But I don't see, I don't see any direct way for him to mess with you. So, knight e2, queen b6. That looks like a blunder. Oh, very nice note as well. So notice what DM is saying, that knight f6, ef6. Remember the cohort was concerned this puts white up a bishop? But no, we call the ambulance for you, my friend. Calling the ambulance for you. Very nice tactic. And that's a key Karo tactic. That's a Karo tactic that comes up again and again. And queen b6, as long as you see that, it's a great move because it's hindering the white king from doing anything. All right, bishop f4. And now this move freaks me out a little bit. Okay, that move freaks me out. I would have preferred to play knight d7 just to keep my pawn structure whole. Okay, but you're still holding the advantage here, I think. Queen d2, bishop g7, and now dude could have at least doubled your pawns over there, but you're doing great. d1, let's castle, baby, nice. Bishop c4. Okay, so again, what are they going to give you? They're going to give you time, right? So here's another lost tempo. And then a full blunder. Full blunder. Okay, and now you killed him. Very good. And so I want to say, DM, I don't see really any mistakes here. The only thing I would want you to say is to make some notes about moves like f3. Because, again, that's the kind of mistake that your opponents are going to be making. You'll get less of the hanging queen thing, and I don't know what was going on in this game if you're playing a complete amateur or house, I don't know what it was, but still, in the cohort you're in, you're going to get a lot of weird moves like f3. DM Liam's in the chat. Nice. I'm cool that you're here. Well, let's do another one, DM Liam. So actually, if you want, you could choose one of this list. I would prefer one of the ones that are over the board. Yeah. Go click on this bad boy over here. Okay. Pop. Let's say there's David. All right, we're going to click on this one, Eric G. Now, this is actually back a while back, and his progress is already crushing. So, let's click this one. Game of Pawns. All pawns, no hope. All pawns, no hope. Okay. Regarding the role of pawns in this game. Okay, well, let's take a look. First of all, we're going to flip it. So let's see from David's perspective. Fine. Now, one thing we should say about actually role of pawns is that black putting the knight on c6 is a little unfortunate in this particular position in that there's no c5. And that means that this pawn on c7 will not participate in the central fight, and there's no avenue of influence for the black queen. No easy one, anyway. and then h6. Again, what will their grief be? They will give you time, right? So what should they do? Bishop d6, or bishop, move the bishop out. Bishop e6, d6, or e7, one of those moves. So time. And now you give, let's talk about knight e5. Knight e5 in general is not a great move because you are solving the problem of this piece for black by playing knight e5. And therefore, first of all, your default move should be castles. If you just come up with nothing else, you just play castles. I don't understand bishop h3. That looks something. I just don't even know what to think about bishop h3. But castle should be your default move. And h3 is not ridiculous. And you could say, Kraai, aren't you saying pawn moves are bad? Yes, but notice that if black takes, if they go back, we say, well, h3 was useful. And useful maybe for my king, useful also for the bishop. And if they take, then we're going to say, oh, right, well, that piece on d2 was a poor piece anyway, and I'd like to get him improved. Okay, so this is bad just on the principles of opening development. Bishop e2, queen e2, knight e5, bishop e5. Now, let's talk about the role of pawns. So, the disadvantage of de is that your bishop would lose scope. The advantage is you win time against the knight, and important to say that now the flavor of the game will be that you are going to try to use this pawn as a basis for attacking the king side. So, for example, a setup like castles, queen g4, knight f3, trying to harass the black king, right? And I'm going to say it's mostly a stylistic choice, but bishop e5 is definitely the more tame of the moves. Now, what's wrong with c6? Giving away time. What's wrong with c3? Giving away time. What should white do? They should castle. What should black do? Bring out the bishop. Easy chess. Easy chess. Again, at this level of your chess development, it's going to be people giving you time and then you understanding, getting better at using that time advantage, right? Again, a simple way to understand it is 3 tempi are worth a pawn. So c6 just gave you a third of a pawn. It's kind of that simple, right? If you wanted, black wanted to make a claim about, say, developing the rook, then maybe we could argue about c5, you know? Okay, so c6, c3, bishop d6. Okay, finally. Now, the mild drawback of bishop d6 is this is their good bishop, this is your bad bishop, because it's blocked in by your own pawns. So it's nothing we should fear. The game has obviously become tame. Okay, that's fine, though. Queen e7. And now, nota bene, white is at the point where all of a sudden, now we have to make a plan. Now we got to make a plan. Not necessarily easy. Let's read what you write. Here I thought for quite a while. Good. You guys at this point, you're like, bows. I got to figure it out. Not so easy. Now, I wouldn't know what to do immediately here either. Okay. Here I thought for quite a while, trying to decide on a plan to move forward with. Assessment. I love this writing, by the way. It was good. I have a pretty solid position, but no obvious plan of attack. Opponent has a pretty solid structure, but his pieces are not doing very much in their current locations. E4 would be a good spot for his knight. Potential plans. My pieces are not well positioned for a kingside attack. Plus, that is where black has the most defenders. A queenside attack seems more likely, but my queen cannot use the a6, f1 diagonal. And it would take my knight a couple of moves to get over there. I could play d1 to b3, but not much can be done there either. The best plan of attack that I could think of is to start pushing queenside pawns. a3, b4, advanced pawns while further restricting black's bishop and queen. Ultimately, I decided on c4 because the only way to break open the position. Okay, good. I don't have any problem with c4. Might be nice to try out a couple variations, like I think this is interesting. Well, that's kind of interesting. That's a thought, you know. Some people probably would do that. And nota bene with c4, if you'd done it earlier, it'd be your move here. It'd be your move here, Bows, right? Okay, so they take and then go on the Project Lamo. Project Lamo with knight d7. Okay. By the way, David, it would be great to do some notations about how much time you're taking for both yourself to think about what's happening and for us. That's right, it's about time. So, interesting decision. I wouldn't know immediately what to do here either. Let's read what you write. I thought for a long time before this move as well because of its implications for the future. I have heard that pawn moves change the landscape of the board because they cannot go backwards. For some reason, I was acutely aware of that reality throughout this game. So far, black is not taking the bait on c4, and I did not especially like the positions that result from cd or c5, so I was looking for something else to do. If knight e5, f4 gives me another way to recapture without isolating my center pawns. If it is involved in a capture, the f-file is open for my rook. If not, a path is made for potential using my rook in a kingside attack. Okay. Yeah. Now, here's the thing. I think it's really important to say that pawns aren't people. You might have heard me say this before. Now, what does that mean? You're thinking about the pawns, but what I want you to think about is f4 should be done with the idea of developing your rook. That's ultimately what you're doing with f4, I think, we're trying to do, right? And for that reason, I think f4 is a very interesting move. Now, nota bene, it's a big deal in terms of pawns and their pieces that this pawn's on h6. If it were not on h6, then f6 would make f4 look kind of silly, right? And even here, black could try to make f6 work in some way. It wouldn't be a bad plan. For example, rook fe8 intending f6, trying to get your knight out of there, right? But in general, I think f4 is fine. And one of the great things about chess experience is you're gaining a sense like, oh, well, this is hard. Like, it's not easy to know what to do in these positions, right? And I'm sure different GMs would play this differently, right? Some chump GM might go pop, pop, rook ac1 and just claim they're a little bit better developed. Okay, maybe my pawns, I can argue, have a little bit of an advantage there too. And I could also always make a useful move like h3, and notice that in this position, h6 is useful for black. So that might even, that fact actually might even lead me to be like, oh my God, if I play knight d7, then h6 is useful. But on f4, it's kind of a bummer for black. That might even be the thing that turns my head and be like, well, Bows, f4 then. Another chump thing they could do to you, some GMs might play, is just to go back. I know, it's not the happiest thing in the world, but we're claiming that our knight is better than your knight, and our pawns have a little bit better friction than yours. Okay, so he takes, well, questionable to take, because now your rook's involved. f6, we're going to call that frisky. Somewhere around this point, I realized that pawns are going to feature prominently in the endgame. In this position, multiple pawn exchanges are available. With the endgame in mind, I found myself thinking through the results of various pawns exchanges. Sorry, I'm in the middle of it. I'm in the middle of a crisis. Okay, so again, forget about pawns for a second and think about pieces. And maybe f6 is fine, okay, but it's as I said, is a little frisky. I think the question for me would be, well, what's happening here? This is my first question. Why? Because I'm getting my rook to the file first. And if you play queen g6, there's a variety of ways where I can put my queen onto the f file and say, Baus, you ain't never going to win the battle of the open file. Queen e7, also a thought. And maybe here might be true that we have absolutely zero in terms of defending against rook f8. But in the moment, our pieces are a little bit more active, and it's our move. And we might try something like e4. Okay, and these are the kinds of positions we could analyze and think about, hey, maybe I am a smidge better here. Why am I a smidge better? Because my junk is a little bit faster, right? Maybe GMs could play it out like this. We can argue about the details, but the point is simply that in this position, White's queen is a little bit better placed. Maybe I'm a little bit better. Maybe, nothing special. Okay, so now CD, ED. Now notice what you did there. You opened the queen scope onto your potentially bad pawn. Queen h5, I don't like it. fe5, de5. Why? Because you've got that weak pawn. Now, some people make fun of me because they're like, Kraai, you always say pawns aren't people, but then you're complaining now about a weak pawn. So notice that what the weak pawn on e5 does is it enables the black rooks to start chomping on something, to have targets. And they could potentially win this bad boy and then this one. So this is where you lose control of the game, right here after f6, right? Because now your pieces are going to be weaker than your opponent's. And fundamentally, so you activate the queen on e7, and then now it's a difficult road. First of all, now it's just, and I don't think you're going to be able to defend yourself here either. So in terms of annotations, really I want to stress, force yourself to decide which moves were good and which moves were bad, right? So clearly you're losing a pawn here. It's time to start thinking about how you could have done better. And rook f5 isn't yet, because the pawn's immediately falling. Whereas if you had played rook f8, at least we are forestalling the loss of the pawn. Did Jesse start at the lower cohorts? Many moons ago, I started at the lower cohorts. That's right. Okay. Hi, Abdul. Abdul's been there for my morning grinds. Queen e5. It looks unpleasant. Okay, and now we have ourselves a rook endgame that is going to be very unpleasant for white. Now, the default thing that I would say here is that usually when we're down a pawn, that just means a clear advantage for black and that it's not totally lost. But here I want you to see something, a couple things about what happens here. Here you give 0 variations after king f7, but you'd make a very important mistake here with rook f1. And this is important to note. And also I want to say it's very common that once we get to the ending, people stop annotating their games in the same way because they're just like, I don't know, Baus. I don't know what to see here. Nothing to see here, Baus. I don't know what I'm looking at. And that's where really, if you can force yourself to do the work, then boom, you were going to learn endgames. Fantastic. So let me put it in an objective sense and a practical sense about the mistake. When you're in the endgame, okay, with the rooks on, there's still a lot of stuff going on. A lot of mistakes will be made. Not going to be easy for black necessarily to push you over the edge. But once the rooks come off it becomes incredibly concrete. Incredibly concrete. And that's the part of the game where people can calculate the furthest. So, for example, you get people always, the question I'm sure you've been asked at some party is, oh, well, how many moves do you think ahead bows? You're like, I don't know. But in a pawn end game, oh, well, buddy, oh, we can do it. We can go 20 moves, Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, it's possible. And so you got to be, your spidey senses have to really be saying, bows, I don't want to go into any pawn ending unless I'm certain, So, like here, for example, I'm saying maybe black's winning, I don't know, but it's from a practical point of view, it's a clear advantage to black. After rook f1, well, I know it's objectively lost because in general, unless you got something fancy in a pawn ending, it's going to be lost. But two, just like you don't know. And so you're just giving your opponent this unnecessary chance. That's what I mean by the practical sense, right? So what would have been better? Something you want to play maybe king e2 or something like that. In general, we want to activate our rook, right? So maybe rook d1, because we can't do king e2 yet because of d4. And then we can imagine here, and then it's still not a done deal that black has killed us, right? And if somehow we get our rook down in there, right, we will have made a little zhuzh. All right, let's look. Good, well played from black. Phoenix Open 2023. I played Phoenix Open like 1996 or something. All right, let's see black's technique. Black, unfortunately, doesn't have to be a genius here. Yep. Well, it's doing simple chess. What? Now, let me just say, that wasn't the simplest chess. Let me show you the simple chess. You go here. You go here. You cut you. You cut you. You cut you. You cut you. And then you resign. Okay. But they did this to themselves. And unfortunately for us, it's all over. Okay. So, David, dude, you're doing great. You're obviously going to be improving at a very high rate. You're already over 1,000 after a couple tournaments. Fantastic, right? And then a couple notes on doing the game analysis, end game work. Put in the evaluations. Put in some of the times that you had, from the score sheet, for example. Okay. Yeah, we're going to go to the next person, and we'll talk a little bit about how the show is organized. So it always defaults to that for me. Always defaults to your cohort. And so what am I doing? I look at the dojo score, and I'm going to pick the top person, but I don't pick a person who hasn't done work in the last 7 days, because it is about consistency of work that is one of the features of improvement. Right? So if you're just joining, the idea is that we want to really look at people who have put in the work but maybe haven't reached the next level yet. Okay, so let's look at Sid Mandu. Boom. Oh, let's read what Sid Mandu says. Returning to chess after nearly 15 years, looking to improve. I think I am a lot stronger than my ChessCom rating would suggest. I played 2 tournaments OTB, so my USCF is still provisional. Since returning to chess a little over a year ago, I have not been really been organized and improving. Hopefully the structure of the dojo is what I need. I probably need to stop playing Blitz too. My chess claim to fame, I was the 2005 winner in the unrated category of the Montana Chess Open. Nice, dude. Nice. You have a good friend in Missoula. So, beautiful place. Great. Let's take a look over here. It'd be cool, actually, to link your USCF and then eventually maybe dream of putting that as your preferred rating. Norris, I've done this a couple times, but I haven't done it on a regular basis. I'm trying. Boston, right? There's honestly so many things to do. And actually, I was inspired to do this one because there was a sensei question on our Discord asking, to do other shows besides the graduates, And this is one of my favorites, so I thought I'd just pop in and do this thing. All right, so let's check out activity here. Boom. That's a lot of work, Bows. That's a lot of work. Pretty good macro distribution. One thing I'll say about the structure, I just reviewed this book, Perpetual Chess Improvement by Ben Johnson. Hopefully it'll come out on our site next day or something. And, he has the 4 pillars of chess improvement. And what he doesn't have in there is the structure. And I think that's so important. I gave him a little critique in there, But otherwise, a pretty interesting book that I think we'll talk about some on Dojo Talks. Okay, so let's take a look. Let's say tactics. Poker mates in 2, boss. 800. I like it. I like it a lot. Tactics time. Okay. Yeah. And then if we click this one, good. Great. Now, let's look at your games here for a second now. So definitely the top one looks like an over-the-board game. Let's just see how that goes. The Cardiff Chess Club. Now I'm assuming maybe there's a Cardiff one down. I don't know. No, it's Cardiff, UK. The following is a review of this game as part of reviewing a game from a dojo member in my cohort. Oh. Okay. Well, that's great, first of all. That's really cool to review a game in your cohort. Cool. Well, let's do a game of yours, though. Let's start with, actually, these are kind of old games. How about this one? There's another review. Okay. So one thing we can see is that you haven't done any games yourself recent. Well, wait, it's kind of. If I click date played, and I go back the other way. Yeah. All right, let's look at this one. That's fairly recent. All right, so this is a classical game. So let's look. In Sid Mandu. Okay. This is a kind of, let's call it known mistake to play this way. And I'm not sure knight f6 is incredibly terrible. You're going to have a worse position here, right? But let me just say that you're still playing principled moves, so I'm not going to complain too much. This is like, yeah, Kraai, take it easy, boss. Take it easy with your high opening theory. Knight f6, I don't know if it's a mistake, because d5, they're going to have an advantage as well. Queen e2, d5, good move. e5, and now the question is, could you have played knight e4? I think you could have. And so if knight g8 or knight fd7 is your move, then you're going to be worse. No question about it. But the problem of what happened, White's move orders, they allowed knight e4, and it looks fine to me. Now, we've been talking a lot about pieces. Note that this guy is largely a chump in, say, this variation, d5, e5. Complete chump. We have a French structure, and you could just ask yourself, well, why is the bishop even there? Nobody knows. In fact, what Black's best move might be to move it again, But if we achieve some kind of knight e4 thing, then it's the case of the helicopter living through the dreams of the child, where the helicopter parent might actually do something in life, Okay, so knight g8. Now we're down a million tempi in a bad French structure. Again, let me stress, at this level, it's time that people are losing and not realizing that they're losing something valuable. Castles, c5, c3, knight e7, bishop g5. And bishop g5, white's going to have their own questions about how to play this position, obviously. And one thing we should say from white's perspective is they would love to open the position. Right? It'd be really great if we could open you up like a tin can here. And you don't really have great pressure against the white center. And that's why the first move maybe to come to mind should be knight g5 to start lighting you up. With queen h5 next. But okay, bishop g5 and queen c8, interesting. And again, white should be thinking of lighting you up. So what's a move to light you up? Something like c4. Right? Knight a3, good move as well. Bishop a6, knight b5, very good. Pop, pop, knight d7. Rook a c1. I have complaints. I have some complaints about that move, rook a c1. Yeah. So it's well-intentioned for them to play rook a c1, but they're not lighting you up. Again, let me just put it as a metaphor. You are in Missoula or in Montana on one of those nice country roads. There's nobody there. You can go fast. Time is beautiful. You got 5 minutes here. Boom. Boss, you're going to go 5 miles. You're in some sticky city like LA, boss, and you got 5 minutes. You might not go nowhere. And so what does that mean for this position? White wants to open the position because the value of time will go up, just like it does in that beautiful open road. Well, the value of time will go up if we can open the position. If it becomes closed, the value of white's time advantage isn't going anywhere. So what's the right move? c4. Open this baby up. Time to knock, knock. Knock, knock. It's time for a little wakey, wakey, eggs and bakey. There's a thing on YouTube where this chick is like, or Instagram, it's like, wakey, wakey, eggs and bakey. Anyways, that's what it would be with c4. And now c4 on your part would be correct to close it down, then followed by a6, b6. Now white must respond with capturing and open. Open it, open it, open it, open it. Okay, but they let you shut it down. Oh, and that, let me just say, breathe a sigh of relief. Just pause and just celebrate for a second once you get this thing shut down. Because now you have a chance at survival. Note as well what's happened. Oh, now we have this French structure where you got rid of your bad bishop. Yeah, right? This is your bad bishop. French structure, it's gone. So now all of a sudden you just can't be complaining anymore. You still got to be a little careful with your king. But, no more complaints. All right, b3. He scratches at you a little bit. Now, remember, that queen side is your side of the board. So they can scratch at you now, but I don't know if it's actually in their best interest. Knight b6, good move. Good. Knight d2, I don't know if he knows what he's doing. Now you need a good move. And you played knight g6. And the move I would be drawn to, I think, is h6, with the intention of messing with their bishop. So, for example, bishop h4, then knight f5. And I'm happy if they want to give me that double pawn and stuff. Happy. And I got the lockdown on the e6 square. And I've opened up my Bishovsky over here. I feel fine. Okay. Okay, so here we go. Knight g6, and now white needs a good move. Takes. It's controversial because he's opening up the d5 square for you. Boom. Bishop e4. Rook b8. Okay. Notice that if our knight were here, we could play here. One thing now we should also say is that your knight is definitely misplaced on g6, and that the value of this piece has skyrocketed now. So let's say the Armenian move at this point, I think, would be knight e7 exclam. Fix the piece and say, you can have it, Bows. I will own the light squares till the end of time, you know? And maybe white's better, but black all of a sudden has dreams. I'm going to put this bad boy here. I'll probably put this bad boy here. Probably put the other bad boy there. And because the position has no open files, it's not a done deal for the rooks. Okay. So that's highfalutin, though, because then we're talking about sacking the exchange. All right, here we go. Just encouraging us to play knight e7. What should white be thinking of? He should be thinking of body slamming you, right? Now, all right, queen f3, knight e7. Oh, I didn't like that one. Now you've lost control over the d5 square. Rook e1. And now a funny thing happens here. When white takes, he's actually helping your knight return to the square it wanted to be on. So there you can see that white gave you a real pass. Queen h5, g6. Now definitely white should play queen h4. Knight b6, good move. Queen f6, rook g8, pop. And now we're going to knight d5 him. You could also maybe play queen d8 too. Whoa, buddy. Yeah, you can't be letting the lady in, you know? Lady luck. You're letting her in, Bows. Letting her in, and definitely you got to play h5. Holds the position, but it's still better for black. Now, I have a feeling you actually meant better for white, and I want to stress there that maybe it is better for white, but it's actually more complicated because you have achieved the blockade now in this position. And so, as a French player, you just can't, the only thing you got to really worry about is, can the knight get here? And then in terms of the analysis, it would be good to do some work on figuring out, from white's perspective, maybe how that might work. But I want to stress, there's a lot of questions. Next move, I'm going to play here, I'm going to play there, and I got some juice. I got a little juice. Okay, so now we're gone. now it's all over. Okay, plus you've helped open the position over there, and so CB would be the easy move to play. And this gives you it gives you hope. Gives you hope. Yeah, you got to be thankful for that. They could have just played CB. And now this is a clear mistake, knight e4. Why? Because you're enabling the knight on g5 to come spank you. After this move, white might be better, but they've certainly made it difficult on themselves. Right? So here we go, knight e4, knight e4. Now we're totally toast. It's important to say there's two big mistakes you made that involve really the activation of your opponent's pieces. One was queen h7, and one was knight e4, right? Giving them the business. And this is just a beast. Look at this thing. Ah! We don't even have anything for our troubles. Yeah, Yeah, we can call it here. Okay. So, good. My opponents are bettering me left and right, and my rating is going down. Well, boss, you're doing all right. Let's just say a couple things about the process of analyzing the games. One thing to stress, first of all, actually, this is for anybody. This opening is known to be bad, but dude didn't take advantage of it. You should feel bad, though, about that move going backwards when you have the knight e4 option. A lot of times people will think pawns are people and not play knight e4 thinking that you're worried about double pawns. But the bishop would be active if they took the knight, right? And then I really am hoping you took away the thing with time, because you gave your opponent 1,000 tempi, and what should they have done? They should have opened the position and ripped you to shreds, right? That and you will have that. You will have that opportunity yourself because they will give you time, right? So that's just a really important dynamic to kind of internalize. Okay, let's go to the next one. We're going to go to 1,200 now. Pop. And we are going to look. I've looked at Sage before on the last one, but I think I'm going to do it again because she is the only one to do the last 7 days. And on the last one, we looked at a game where it was intimated. Yeah, that was a great analysis, but it was intimated that her other analyses were much deeper, right? So again, this show is very simple. I'm looking at the dojo. I'm just going down the list, dojo score, and then who's got last 7 days, because consistency is key. So here we go with Sage. It is really remarkable that Sage is using the FIDE as her basis. Okay, now let's then look activity. And actually, wait, ratings. Okay, what's a little bit weird, Sage, is usually there's a little thing here which gives us a link. Maybe Jack set it up in a way that you could hide that link so that I wouldn't expose you on stream. That's fine too. That's fine. That should be there. I feel a little weird when I click it. I mean, it's there to be clicked on, but I feel a little weird when I click on and then it shows, somebody's real name. I don't know. Some people care, some people don't. Anyways, what's interesting about you using FIDE as opposed to, say, US Chess or wherever it is you are, is that there'll be less FIDE opponents for you to play when you play over the board at this rating level. By the way, my memory of Sage's analysis and the plans that we were looked at, we had the last show we did this, Best of the Cohort. It was me, Kostya, and David, and we were all just like, dang, some good moves in there, Bows, some good moves. So I suspect that Sage will come up shortly, and you can see that if she used her ChessCom, she would definitely be over the top there, as well as the Lichess. So maybe we're just waiting, just waiting for a graduation over here. All right, let's look activity. You know what we could do? Let's look what she's done last 7 days. Games and analysis. Oh, I'm liking that. Last 30 days. This website, dude. Jack, dude, you are a genius, Bows. Look at this thing. I can go to the last 90 days. Boom. And then I go all time. Great. Fantastic. Okay, let's look at a game here. Boom. Okay. This, in terms of games date played, let's see here. I'll switch this up. There we go. There's one that's more recent. So let's just choose this one. This looks like it's from a real tournament. Okay. This match is against a young girl. She plays d4, which I hate. I'm planning to change the orthodox defense so I can understand c5 timings better. Dodging the opponent's comfort zone and avoiding some c5 action is the reason I went into the Slav in the first place. However, this change means I will lose a decent amount of games to the minority attack because I don't know how to create enough activity to make the pawn sack worth it. Okay, so let me just say my intuition on reading that is that you're spending too much time with the openings, right? And in general, the program says, and by the way, we could change this to Dojo 3.0, okay? But the program says that 12 to 1300 to be the first cohort, you should actually care about openings. And before that, you shouldn't be caring at all. But at 12 to 1300, just to focus on a response to e4. And so the point would be that if you just play principled moves, you're going to be fine. And to learn to play principled moves. All right, here we go. Now, is your rant over, boss? Okay, here we go. So, okay, fine, snip, a4. These are great notes, by the way. Now, bishop f5, good move. This is all theory. I assume you kind of knew this. Seems like both players know it. e3, e6, bishop c4. Yes, pure efficiency. But now let me just say, so far we're playing GM level here. This is also GM level. And the first move that's not terrible, but a little suspect is this one, bishop d2. And castles. And Sage writes that that is theory. Right. Okay. So there's some theoretical notes there. Castles. Okay. Castles. Knight d7. Good. Now let's see first what white does, because white needs a plan. And then you talk about c5. You're fine. You're fine. No. Don't worry about c5 right now. Knight d7 is the move, especially because right now we are asking white some very important questions. And especially from a practical point of view, I don't believe white knows what to do here. They're in a spot. How do I know that? Because bishop d2 doesn't actually make much sense. Okay, so here we go. Rook e1. Activating the rook. Okay, so we're talking about queen e2 as maybe being better for white. But I'm going to say, hold on. I'm going to say, hold on. This is, okay, let's say the obvious. White's threatening to do this. Okay? At this point, you have a variety of moves to play here. a5, but that's just to hold down the b4 square and to guard the bishop. But if you're really concerned about e4, you could play both bishop g6, so that on e4 you just snip and snap, right? Or you could play bishop g4, and it's a little bit annoying. It could be bishop g4, e4, e5, right? So I want to stress, here you're doing fine, and you come up with the same idea on bishop g6. So you're doing great. This is all very, but you are creating deep Slav ideas. At this 1200 level, you're doing it all by yourself. Fantastic. Knight a2. Now, this will be an interesting moment for us after knight a2. Because we could just play bishop e7 or bishop d6. When you take on d2, you get rid of white's worst piece, and you're solving it for them, right? Now, one of the things, and I've seen this from, I played this thing as white when I was a kid, and knight a2 is always something that's going to cross people's minds, but it's fundamentally poor, okay? Because the knight's terrible. Because the knight's terrible, Baus. Terrible, right? So, and it's going to be needed if they're going to do anything. It's like, let's say, is rook e1 going to make some sense? Only if they can achieve e4, right? So bows. That knight is going to have to come back to c3. Okay, so mild critique for bishop d2. I like bishop d6 better. Kind of weird. Kind of weird. And now let's think about the position. One thing you'll see is that players are often obsessed with pawns. And in this case, white is obsessed with the move e4. If the move e4 is of any value, it's because it's containing your pieces, right? And so we do want a good move here, especially because white's got herself into a bit of a funkalupicus? I don't know what it is. It's one of those things, right? So let's see your notes about what you did. Yeah, you played knight b6. This is a important mistake. Let's read what you write. It pains me so much that I don't understand this position. Why am I going for d5 with my knights? The opponent has e4. They are not going on e5. Even knight b6 is not stable. A5 is strong and coming in with tempo. So you write about c5 or e5? Personally, I like e5 best. But c5 certainly makes good sense too. Yeah, one of those moves. And now let me relate it to what we were talking about before. I'm talking about time. So white is really down in time because the knight on a2 owes a move, the knight on d2 owes a move, and there's a lot about bishop c4 that feels like it owes. It feels like it owes something, okay? So by opening the position, we are trying to use the fact of our time advantage. And the other thing we'll say about e5 or c5 is that we're trying to get our knight on d7 involved. And this is really central to understanding an opening, is that we got to think about our worst piece. And that dude is definitely our worst piece. Now, this piece can become our worst piece if white can calmly play this e4 move. And that's one of the things that both e5 and c5 work against, is stopping that from happening, right? Okay. Yeah, so this is I see this a lot on players much higher rated than you, that they play like knight b6, losing control over the key squares c5 and e5. Bishop b3, and now I think we need to play a5. I think. Good move. Okay, they come back. Correctamundo. Correctamundo. And now we can see we're going to have a small, nota bene, it's just small, space disadvantage. Rook e8, a little weird. What is your intention here? You want to play e5 next move? Okay. I'm just looking at it a second. So one of the Slav features that you will have in this variation, if you keep playing it, is you always have some compensation of the space disadvantage with this beautiful square. Right? And so just my take on the position would be queen d6 to look at the square, and then they can't play e4 yet because we snip. And then if knight f3, then we can do a couple things. But the one I want to do is I want to play now here. So again, we're defending against e4. We're looking at this square, and we'll probably play a move like this soon. Okay, so here we go. Knight f3, knight d5, good. Snip, that's terrible. It's terrible. Just solved your all your problems. Thank you very much. And now you got a nice choice. E takes, C takes, knight takes. They're all beautiful. Okay. So you have one problem here. It's the knight. And what is black doing? They're taking the knight, right? So what would a better move be? Knight e5. And you say to yourself, oh, of course, because I left my wingman. I left that square a long time ago. But let's just stress, you got a small space disadvantage. So what? So what? It'll happen again. you get a space disadvantage, so no big deal, right? So knight takes terrible. And now we can have a deep think about what we think is best here. I think all of the moves you could play for a win. The thing about knight takes that I'm most uncertain about is that it allows e4, which will cut our bishop out of the scope. C takes definitely can be played for a win because white's bishop is garbage. That's terrible. And we are going to very quickly play queen b6. We're going to look at the coconuts. We're going to put the coconuts on the c file, double the coconuts, and I think we got a pretty nice game. E takes. One nice thing about that move is you're saying, oh, well, I put the rook there for a reason, right? I put it there for a reason. And this is a little bit more abstract than C takes, but definitely a plausible way of playing, right? Nota bene, white has made this bishop miserable. Knows likes E takes. Okay, so knight takes. Oh, that's miserable. Oh, that's one of the worst moves we've seen in a while here at the dojo. So, the correct move, again, it's about space, so it's not the easiest thing to understand. Or rather, let's call it the question, is can white play for e4 to shut down the bishop? And in addition to e4, we could play knight e5, right? This knight might look cool, but it's a little bit of a tourist, right? And here, white could consider maybe a move like h3. This is just an example, just so that bishop h5 is met with the clamp down. And we're just going to say, bows, that's a chump bishop. Now, again, here, you're not lost. And my sensei, Vasily Smyslov, played in a similar position, f6, bishop f7. Okay. Space disadvantage. Now I feel like, now it's time to get excited. Now it's like, time for us to have a little discussion. Now we're better. Yeah. I'm not impressed with queen b3. And rook e7 is a little fancy. I don't know why we wouldn't play queen e7. So, one thing I'll stress is I love this bishop. So I would really want to make sure in all these variations that we just don't get that thing traded off. And I'm worried, especially on rook e7, that white can trade the thing off. There's a couple of variations to calculate there, but that's my concern. That's why I would want to play queen e7. And next move, I'm either going to play f6 or h6, put the pawns on the opposite squares of that bad boy, and look at the reign of that beast. The beast! Yeah, the beast. And there ain't no minority attack either, because we got that locked down. So rook e7, I think that's poor. Knight h4 was better. f6, plausible move. Okay, you're killing the knight. Now, one thing we can ask ourselves is, how long does it take white to realize that they have to fix the knight? Okay, in my experience at this level, it takes a long time for them to see it. Now, f6, I don't think I like, because now I'm wondering, what about knight h4? If you don't give me the bishop, I get to play knight f5. Okay, so for sure, white should play knight h4 now. Now, you can ask me, Kraai, well, what should Sage have done? Well, h6 is a good start. And then we can always do this, and we're a rock over here. Nothing's happening over there to us. And later, what do? We're going to expand on the king side. But maybe we'll put a bishop on e4, you know? We're going to start talking. We got something to say. Okay, I don't think that makes any sense. Now I still like h6, I guess. That doesn't make any sense. Defending b6, getting ready for weird heavy piece maneuvers. Okay. Now that is weird. That is weird. Now what you're doing is you're curling yourself into a ball. Ask yourself, is white actually threatening anything? No, they're not threatening anything. They didn't know what to do. You know, they didn't realize that the knight needs fixing. Right? Again, by the way, it's a very high level game for 1200, 1300. It's generally, at a higher level that I start really complaining to people about not having sensitivity to their bad pieces. In this case, white needs to be ultra sensitive to the dead knight and play knight h4. Here, I think you're responding to ghosts because the rook doesn't have a lot of future over there, and it's kind of like the rook on c5. What is it doing? Like let's say it's white's move. How are they going to really crush us or something? And we have loads of building moves. We could get out of the diagonal if we wanted. h6 I like, as I said. Move the bishop. Like a plan could be h6, move the bishop, and start advancing. Time for us to move. Okay, rook a6. Oh, that's ugly. We are threatening a cheap trick. They fall for it. b6. Now, question mark. Queen d3. Good move. Good move. And what we can say, actually, is Jesse's talked about all this highfalutin stuff, right? But in fact, where the game turned was precisely here where you and your opponent missed a resource. And if white just finds queen d3, I think I'm going to say they are now better. And let's talk about why. Because now you've created a little bit of a... Well, first of all, this bishop is now misplaced. Oh, wait a second, though. It's still spicy. What are we saying? It's still over, Grover. Look, the rook goes back and... Hello, darling. Hello, love. Woo! No, we still got him. No. There's no queen d3, ain't it? It's the good try, but it's missing out on this party. Yeah. Okay, so yeah. So again, but what the ultimate point I was trying to make is still fundamentally okay, which is to say, hey, Jesse gave all these long speeches about the position and yada yada, but where the game was decided was on this tactic, right? Good. Oh, we already did it. This is how the game went. Now we want rook a7. Fine, that's also fine. Letting us trade. Okay, let's talk about this a second. This is a good position to think about how to close this kind of thing out, okay? Because let's just look for a second here. Now your rook on a6 is very passive and white has chances of survival. Okay, so let's go back. Problem number one for you in this position is to fix the rook on a6. So you need to fix it, and rook a7 is certainly the first move to come to mind, right? Now there's no rook c1 because of this. I'm fixing my bad piece. So what I want you to see, and you'll see this, your opponents are doing this too. Like I still don't know if white's understanding this knight is terrible. That here in this series of moves, you've neglected to feel the pain of the rook on a6, right? In fact, I think a great move here would be to play rook a7. And if they take, we say, thank you, activated. I'm in the party now. If you want, you could play the other rook over too. And then your rook is really great, and the knight still continues not to know where it's going. That's an example of good one of a pawn sack in the ending. So passive. Now, my big question, do they know where the knight is going? King f7, king f1. Let's see, I have an idea for white, but let's see what happens. King here, rook b7, and now e4. Horrendous. Now, let's just talk for a second. White needs to come up with a way to fix their knight, right? And I think when we go back to this position where you are passive, right, and you're going to spend a lot of time fixing your business, that knight d2 was okay, but it needed to have an idea, and I think that would have been it. That's a beauty, right? Beautiful move. So now if you do your thing now, boom, knight's active, doing stuff, right? Very important to fix the bad piece. And now you're all tied up. Now I'm not sure who's better, right? Yeah, it's all of a sudden it's a real problem. The rook a7 thing isn't going to be so easy anymore. For example, pop, 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 pop. Oh no, right? Yeah. And even this position, I don't know, once you activate your rooks, they will be so angry. They will be so angry that even then you're going to have good chances of counterplay. But that's the kind of thing that white needs to be looking for. Okay, so she fixed your stuff, and now we got to be making a move like rook a8. Very good. What do the rooks want? They want open lines. Rook d8. Check to the miserable king. Maybe not great. And then you write knight c3. Okay. I still like I think I like your position a lot, though. At the bare minimum, we could start with rook d6. By the way, what do we want in this position? We want to trade off the rook, because our rooks are reduplicating the task, and if we can trade off the rook for the rook, and then it's just the rook versus knight, oh, buddy. Whereas we have diversity in white's force, and they can do good things. Check. Good move. King f7 runs into knight d6. And of course, you could have thought about king d7 too, but this makes some sense. That doesn't seem like it's it. Good move. Now you're going to bully the knight. Check the miserable king. Good. At least on principle, it's good. And if I'm white, I definitely want to analyze a variation with king f4. Because now my knight is poor. In this position, my knight's doing quite a bit. So again, to learn endgames, it's really good to go deeper into a position like this. So for example, king f4, and then just ask yourself, like, well, what could I have done in this position? And it's a little scary, because if white takes the pawn on a5, right, well, bad things could happen to me. Okay, so passive with the knight. Now again, we want to trade the rook. Not an easy situation. And look what happens. Your opponent gleefully gives you this rook. Mistake. Huge mistake. Massive mistake. Right? So now we have the situation which, while still maybe a little complicated, is very favorable to us in the sense that that rook now has nothing to stop it. Usually I give this speech at a higher level, but the diversity principle is very important. If you are down the exchange, you do not want to trade rooks, right? Because those black's rooks were doing the same job your knight was doing, fancy stuff that the rook could help out with. Now that knight is all alone, no more long-range pieces. Check. I don't understand that move. Good. Reasonable. I don't understand. Okay, I do understand. Good, you're talking about king d6. Okay. And now we kick. Nice, good, good, good. Dang, you're playing some good chess. And then the game's over. And that, very well done. Okay. That was really good. That was really good. Now, what did I say here? Who was I? I made some announcement. I was like, I'm going to cover these people's situations. So I had one more. And let's do that. And then I actually have to pronto leave because we are doing our dojo talks in just a half a second at the top of the hour. So that was 12, 13. Let's go 13, 14. And we can't do quad because dude is in the wrong cohort. So we're going to look at Luton. We're going to look at Luton. Boom. Okay. Bouncing around some. Began in July. Has a little bit of a rough spell. Has dipped down below where, you know, they got up there and then dipped down below. That happens. So, are we going to stream Dojo Talks? Always. Always, always, always. Let's take a look at Luton. Good macros. Those are some good macros. And we're definitely going to get a game here. So let's take a look. This is Luton playing Patchy the Pirate. This one, I might not spend as much time as I did on the other games, and I apologize, but that is simply because I'm under a little bit of a schedule now. Right. So, this is a mild mistake, and you're right. Bad move because it's possible to chase away the knight. Now, my understanding here is that d5 is still kind of interesting for black. And now you start pushing him around. Good. You could have also played knight c3 and had the advantage. Now, this is a mistake. Excuse me, when I say this, I mean knight f3. Because if you're going to play d5, it's with the intention of messing with that knight. Right? So, why do you have an advantage? Here you have a little bit more central space. When you play for d5, you're saying, I'm going to undevelop the knight on c6. It's the most ambitious move in the position. And now what do? You just trade it off. So black's problem is now gone. Check to the miserable. Does he want some exchanges? Sure, I'll take those. Notice when you take here, you develop this queen. So it's like you moved and he moved, but he developed and you didn't. So mistake. E6, okay. G6 was maybe a little more natural, but E6 is probably okay. That was terrible. Right. Why was E5 terrible? Because he's giving you time. What have we seen all of this stream, right? It's been about time. People giving time away for free. So bishop G5. And right, now here, you know, you need to think about a plan. And bishop G5 is simply a natural move. And not only do you learn about the bishop G5, bishop E7 tactic that can happen, but also what you should feel is that this is your best piece and this is his worst piece. And when you oppose the two, you are encouraging a trade that is bad for you, right? An example of, let's say, thematic play or something could be bishop E3, bishop E7, rook FC1, castles, and maybe A4. All right, rook C8, maybe queen E2 or A5, one of those moves. And we're giving him a little bit of zhuzh on our side of the board, right? We got other moves too. That's just an example. So bishop g5, rook ac1, and now knight d5. Now, knight d5 is mildly insane, though, okay? Because your black isn't developed yet. I think he's well suited to do it after. So, for example, knight d5, bishop g5. Now, maybe they hang on after knight c7, but rook c7 is, I mean, to my eyes, that's game over. Because that rook is just a monster. You know, the beast. The beast has arrived. The beast has arrived. Okay, here. Notice you're playing a little bit without a plan. And I get it. It's not easy to find a plan, especially Krai's fancy like queenside stuff, right? Fancy move. Okay. Now, was it a good move? I don't think so. Because you could have now played pop, 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 and maybe they are not entirely lost here, but we definitely, and you're actually right, this actually I can survive this move. I mean, who would I rather be? I'd rather be white. So notice that what happened with knight d5 is they were like, oh, I win a pawn. And is it a cool tactic? Yeah, it's a cool tactic. But strategically, just mobilize your two pieces. Like this rook was talking to the knight. He was saying, in this position, he was saying, Bows, get out of my way, man. I got things to do on the c-file. People to say, how does the phrase go? People to do, things to see. And, you know, and the knight's like, Bows, I don't have anywhere to go. You know, and the knight took here. And then he was like, oh no, I got some now. I got something to do. And the rook says, go get it, son. And then the rook's like, oh yeah, that was my dream all along, you know. Okay, so you took. Now black is up a pawn. a6, loss of time. What's a better move? Rook ac8, we can think about the fancy f5 too. Okay, black abandoned the c-file entirely. Knight d5, good move. And now they give you, of course, they need to trade that thing. Okay, now they give you that fancy knight. Queen a3, I don't know. Maybe queen g3 or f4. I don't understand queen a3. I don't understand rook e1. f5, I guess. Okay. Gives a knight. Bang! Nice move, Bows. There it is. There it is. Well done, Luton. And that's the kind of thing that, you know, will decide these games. And we talked a lot about sensitivity and other fancy things, but tactical sensitivity would simply be black putting this queen here, and it's like, oh, I got to worry about something like this. It didn't. And then white's like, wait a second, I've seen this pattern before. Boom, we win. Okay, cool. I did kind of make a course on time. There's a course on Chessable called It's About Time. Kind of drilled in from a beginner's perspective, the idea of tempo, but you can see it involves players well above 1,000. All right, you guys, I will do this show at some point in the near future again, but right now I got to give myself a small pause because we're going to do this Dojo Talks. And so, you know what I'm going to do? I'm not even going to raid anybody. We're going to be back probably pretty short.